Welcome to Mná Feasa, a podcast series featuring stories from older women in County Kilkenny. Produced by me, Helena Byrne, in collaboration with Kilkenny County Council Library Services and Kilkenny Heritage. The religious landscape of Ireland has undoubtedly seen dramatic change in recent years, and Kilkenny is no exception. In episode 8, older women of Kilkenny reflect on their own personal faith, life in a predominantly Catholic society, and how the Catholic Church's stronghold on the community impacted not only how we saw others, but how we saw ourselves. How religious was your family?
Very.
Very?
Very.
Okay.
Yeah. The rosary was said in our house every night.
Right.
Every night.
12 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
No, just the rosary now. Just
Oh, right,
the rosary.
okay.
Yeah, the Angelus, once, if it was on the radio and we heard it on the radio, it would always be said, you just stop. You wouldn't be working when you'd be saying the Angelus or anything like that.
Right.
You wouldn't be even washing up or doing anything. If you were doing something, you stopped and it was said. And then the rosary was said every night in our house. And there was one particular night, and she, poor mammy, I can remember distinctly, she was probably falling asleep, really and truly. And she was doing the Litany of the Saints, and it was Holy Souls pray for us, Holy Soul. And she was, Holy Stones pray for us. And Daddy just said, that's it now, Mammy. He said, give it up. He said, when you can't stay awake, he said, for the rosary. He said, so he entered the rosary that night.
Oh!
So we stayed awake the next night. Yeah, they were both of them were quite religious. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quite religious. Yeah, they were both of them, and mass goers. You know.
Yeah. Just every Sunday.
Just every Sunday. Yeah, there were no weekday masses them times. Just you'd be lucky to have it on a Sunday. Yeah, they were. It was just something we lived with.
Yeah. Was it
You know,
just sort of
part of the
given?
norm? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was part of the norm.
I was going to ask you as well about going to mass and that sort of thing, and
Yeah,
how.
and walking there from the fasting from midnight the night before and walking a couple of miles.
Would you have to do that every Sunday? Fast from
Yeah.
midnight the night before.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah,
Oh.
You couldn't get Holy Communion if you weren't fasting. And there was one woman that I knew, and she had quite a few children, and one day she poured out some milk to see was it hot or something, and didn't she taste it, and she couldn't go to communion.
I think of my mother, you know, that time milking cows, getting up milking cows, expecting some of us, couldn't have a cup of tea from 10 o'clock the night before, go to mass.
Yeah, because you had to fast before
Fast, yeah,
mass. didn't
couldn't
you?
have a cup of tea. I mean, who would want that?
Yeah.
And I'll always remember that when I was making my first communion, you might remember that, the hundreds and thousands, all the colour little small.
Yes, yeah, little sweets
And I can
things,
remember, even up to today, I can remember tipping a cake at home in my own house below us, whatever age I was, 7, I suppose, 6, 7, and eating it. I always said that, and I should have confessed that. That'll tell you, like, you know.
I remember when you had to go to confession every week, and the priest didn't know you, and you wouldn't really have committed any sins, you
No,
know.
you'd nearly have to make something up, I'd say. wouldn't you?
Yeah.
How bad can you be every 7 days?
You say the
used to say-
contrition.
I used to say I stole sugar. When I was really young, I used to say I stole sugar off the table or something like that.
just
Stolen
make
sugar.
something up to keep them happy. Yeah. Confession was a more regular.
Every month they went to confession. First Friday, for the first Friday. And you'd be trying to think of what you'd done. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is a month since our last confession. I was company keeping. I was being bold, making up sins. There wouldn't be a sin on a soul, like, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, all that's gone, Helena. I
I mean,
mean,
how much sinning can you do in a month when you're a child, you know?
oh Lord, bless you.
Yeah. That's
My
all it takes.
grandmother, like her eldest son, he was a priest, but they hadn't the money to put him through college here.
Okay.
So he was ordained in Propaganda College in Rome,
Oh.
and then he went to Australia. And he was only home twice. From 1926 he was ordained, and he was only home twice between that and the time he died in 1957.
Good Lord.
You know.
Isn't that incredible?
And I can remember the first time he came home, and the only reason he came home, my grandmother was saying to him, how is it all these other priests come? And they called to me, they come home. And he said, Maud, he always called her Maud. Maud, he said, they're not building schools and churches and trying to, get the parish up and running. He said, no, I said, I'm not saying they're doing away with funds, but they're getting home, he said, But the first time, I remember he came home and it was all, Uncle Bobby is coming now, and remember he's a priest and you have to be, behave yourself. And
prim and proper.
Prim and proper. And there were only 3 bedrooms in the house. Now they made one of the rooms downstairs. There was 2 rooms downstairs, and then they built on a kitchen. And he had to have a room to himself, so it meant everyone else was top and tailing while he was home. But look, you did those things in those days, and
you wouldn't question it.
Not at all.
And what age would you have been? Would you have been quite young at the time?
Yeah, the first time he came home, I was only about 7.
Right.
And I can remember the excitement of him coming home and being in the house and like having a priest staying in the house.
Yeah.
And
it was like a celebrity coming in the door.
And you see, being out like that, he didn't wear his clerical clothes. And my grandmother used to go mad. She said, Bobby, she'd say, I can remember, she'd call him back, where's your collar? He'd be going out. And he had a jacket that a World War II pilot gave him after the war. And used to wear it. It was a leather jacket. I mean, you see them in all these old war films now with the fur inside. And he was frozen when he came home. And she said, Bobby, you shouldn't be wearing those. You should wear a dark. I can remember all these things so vividly. It was so different,
Yeah. And the sort of esteem that even a mother to a son.
Yeah. Oh,
because
yes.
he was a priest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm Church of Ireland, so things are from a slightly different perspective. People often say to me, did you ever feel discriminated against, growing up? Mm-hmm. Never. Ever. I can remember one child once saying to me, we were playing on the street one evening, and she said to me, we were right and you were wrong. And I said, so? I couldn't care less. As long as she still wanted to play with me, I didn't care. For Innisteig, there was a lot of Protestants at the time my father would have been growing up, because Woodstock was at its heyday, and they had brought a lot of people over from England, to work in the gardens, to work in the house, on the estate, like their managers, all of that. They employed an awful lot of people from the village, but they also brought in a lot of people. And they even built a Methodist church. And my mother used to refer to the Methodist church as the Swaddling House. And she used to go there with some of her aunts and people like that. The congregation, like in Innisteig at that time, was a full church. Whereas now, if we get 8 to 10, we're doing very well. I mean, there was a thing where I had a couple of very good friends who were Roman Catholic, and they didn't come to my wedding because they would have had to get a dispensation to go into the church in the 60s. And I remember my own grandparents, my father's parents, were a mixed marriage, which was quite common in those days. And the way they worked it, if the father, in our case, it was the grandfather was the Protestant. So the boys went with him, and the girls went with the grandmother. And there was only one. My father had 2 siblings that died when they were children, but he had one sister, and there was 3 boys. And so the 3 boys were brought up Protestant, and the 1 girl was brought up Roman Catholic. And this used to fascinate me when I was like 15 or 16, thinking about that. And my aunt was the most absolutely devout Catholic. I mean, she went to Mass every single day of her life, really devout Catholic. My father used to say, well, if that's what it takes, God help the rest of us. But I remember asking her, she lived into her 90s, into her Auntie Min, must have been really queer growing up, half the family going one way and half the other. Not at all, she said, sure, half the village was like that. She said, we didn't think anything of it. But she said, don't you think, she said, that my father was up
and took the 3 boys to church every Sunday. He did not, she said. He was too fond of his pints on a Saturday night. Yeah. He was usually asleep snoring, she said. Yeah. My mother got those boys up and dressed, and she dropped them, and the 2 churches in Innisteague, I don't know if you know Innisteague, side by side. She dropped the 3 boys into church, into the door of the church, and somebody probably stuck them in a pew and said, sit down there and behave yourselves. And then she went on into Mass with her daughter, and then she picked the boys up on the way out.
And I remember there was a Legion of Mary, and we were all kind of, we were all joined the Legion of Mary.
Okay.
And now that was a chore, because when you made your first communion, you had to go and you had to, in a procession with the Legion of Mary, and to get to Ross could have been a deal for us, you know. Well, when you wouldn't have, this is when my sisters and brothers were younger, because you wouldn't have a car, you know, you'd be dependent on somebody to give you a lift.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. Would this kind of be the same thing as the Child of Mary? Was it I just know it's the thing that Maeve Binchy wrote about being a Child of Mary.
Yeah.
At one stage.
You had a blue sash.
Yeah.
And you had the Our Lady's medal, the miraculous medal as well. I mean, it was a big medal. It was no small medal. No, this medal. Yeah, they're just memories now that I would have of my religion.
Church of the ladies, no, after having a child, no, women years ago.
What was that now?
Your mother now, your grandmother probably. You know, at that time they said after your grandmother having the big babies, she had to go and get church, get some kind of a special blessing up with the priest. Now, I never had that done, but that was going.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
With the Magdalene laundries and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Was there anything of that equivalent around Kilkenny or Waterford from what you remember? Was there anything similar to that?
I mean, I remember 2 ladies. They found a baby along Holly Lake. It was like a big lake down near us at home, and this baby was found wrapped up in cloth. And when the guards passing Monday, didn't see the same material on the window, the baby, lovely baby boy. Oh. And then there was another lady. She had 2 or 3 kids there, but she just disappeared and came back not pregnant. So they were probably all.
I do know that there were some unfortunate ones that went off to England as raw as could be from the country, you know. And if you see lost families, you ever look at it, lost families on the television, all sorts comes up. It's an English programme. I think they have something similar on in Ireland as well. But, you know, all these mothers and, you know, they became pregnant and they couldn't look after the child and they couldn't tell their parents. Their children were taken and ended up in America and this, that. And now there's a lot of them meeting up, which is great, through lost families. Lovely couple doing that.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see it.
I had an aunt and she'd only have lived, say, in a car now 5 minutes away. And she had 8 or 9 or 10 in the family. But seemingly like that, she had to get married, right? But I heard my mother saying that my grandmother then, that was in Knockbrock, said to my mother, she didn't ever want to see daylight again. She didn't ever want to see daylight, my grandmother.
Oh, God.
Because, now I know my grandmother died in 45, I was born in 43, and someone said she was down at her mother's wake in Knockbrock. Now I said, if I was her, I wouldn't go to the house. See me, they ignored her. Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
But that's what my mother said. Oh, she said, your grandmother said she never wanted to see daylight again because poor Aunt Molly was pregnant. And like she lived happy and big family and lovely, seemingly lovely woman.
I still would be.
Religious.
Yeah.
Spiritual.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I would. I still would be. And I look, I don't tell anyone to do this, that or the other. I do it myself. I like my Mass. I go to Mass every Sunday, or at least every week. But I don't enforce it on my children. Okay. I mean, they were all brought up to go to Mass and everything like that. Let them do what they want to do. Right. You know, yeah. I don't.
You don't see people now blessing themselves as they drive or walk past a church. Yeah. I grew up with, you know, people of my vintage. Yeah. I've one particular friend, and if I was driving with her, if she passed 6 churches between here and Kilkenny, she would bless herself passing the churches. Yeah. Also in houses, there's no longer the little holy water inside. You know, it's little things like that as a non-Catholic I notice, and I think it's a pity. I think The younger people have lost a lot because those traditions are gone.
Mná Feasa is a podcast series featuring stories from older women in County Kilkenny. Produced by me, Helena Byrne, in collaboration with Kilkenny County Council Library Services and Kilkenny Heritage. This collaboration is kindly funded by commemorative initiatives under the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. To find out more, visit helenabyrne.com.